schoolers, and welcome to the September edition of Book Talk. So what is Book Talk? Well, it's a monthly web series that I will send out to your teachers where I literally talk to you about books. That's it. It's that simple. So for this month, I want to introduce you to two of my favorite middle school authors. And you can see if these might be books you could be interested in. The first author I want to talk about is Joan Bauer. That's her name. And this is her first book that I'm going to talk to you about. It's called Peeled. So Joan Bauer is what we call a realistic fiction author. That means that when you read her books, they feel like real life. They're stories. They're made up. They're not real. But they feel real. Like they feel like stories that could happen to anybody else that you know. So we're going to look at four of her books really quick today. This one's called Peeled. And in this book, the main character lives in a town where there's kind of a mystery surrounding a ghost, and she's not really buying it. It's not a ghost story. She starts investigating what's going on with this ghost, which is why the book is called Peeled, because it's like she's peeling back the layers of the story. And some people in town are not very happy that she's doing some investigating. I wouldn't call it a mystery, really, and I wouldn't call it a ghost story, really. It's more like a real life story of a girl who's just trying to solve some clues and kind of wondering about her own life, too. So that's Peeled. The next one is Almost Home. In this one, our main character is homeless, living with her mom and her dog, and they're homeless. And her mom kind of is struggling, so she ends up going into the foster care system with her dog. And it's hard. It's a really difficult time for her. And so in this book, you're kind of moving with her through that difficult circumstance. And I love books like this because they teach us about what it's like to live a life different than what we live. So great book about trying to find your place in the world. The next one is Soar. I have to admit, I loved this one when I read it because I love baseball. So in this one, the main character is a baseball player, and he has to have heart surgery, and so he can't play baseball anymore. And that's a pretty big blow. He moves to a new town, and he and his dad help coach a baseball team, but it's hanging on by its last leg, and so he tries to work to save baseball in that town. And finally, Close to Famous. One of the things I loved about this book was all of the cool characters. The main character is a girl who loves to bake and kind of has all these characters that live in her town that are really interesting and funny and unique personalities. I thought it was a really cool book that had a lot of different people in it, that had a lot of different viewpoints. And I mean, sometimes you just read a book and the characters are super fun. You wish you knew them in real life. This is one of those. One of my favorite books like that has super cool characters is Because of Mr. Turrupt. So if you liked that one, you might like this one. Okay, the second author I want to talk to you about today, her name is S.A. Bodine. And I met her a few years back, and I realized she wasn't a man. S.A. Bodine, all these years, I thought was a guy. And it's Stephanie Bodine. And when I met her, she had black hair with a lime green stripe in it. And she was really funny and outgoing. And she goes by S.A. Bodine when she writes, so that nobody knows if she's a boy or a girl. And I thought that was kind of a fun trick, because it worked, tricked me. So she writes all kinds of different books. Some of her books are some of my favorite middle school books. I'm going to start with my favorite of hers. It's called The Gardener. So when I'm describing her books, I would say they all are like edge-of-your-seat thrillers. And you just can't wait to see what's going to happen next, but they all kind of have different twists. So this one's kind of a science fiction mystery thriller. So it's about a greenhouse where they grow humans. That's in the future, and that's how we're creating people now. And it's got lots of twists and turns and a little bit of an underlying mystery. One thing I loved about this book was that you get to the end and you're kind of mad. And then at the very end of the book, there is an epilogue that tells you just a little bit more about what happens at the end. And this is one of those books you do not want to skip the epilogue on. So lots of action, adventure, and science fiction in The Gardener. The next one is The Raft, and this one is more of a survival book. It's about a girl who is flying across the Pacific Ocean and her plane crashes. And she is alone with just one other survivor and like a bag of Skittles floating around in the ocean, kind of trying not to die. But things aren't quite as they seem. So some really interesting mysteries kind of unfolded here as she tries to survive floating out in the Pacific Ocean. So see what I mean? That one's not science fiction-y like The Gardener, more like real-life survival. This is The Raft. The next one Again, still books by Stephanie Bodine, S.A. Bodine, and this one's called Shipwreck Island. And it's about a girl who, her father just got married, and now she has like stepbrothers, and they're trying to all get to know each other, and it's kind of awkward. And they decide to go on a family sailing trip. And so they fly down there, and they get on a boat, and they're out in the ocean, and they're doing their thing, and then something terrible happens. So lots of questions and a little bit of survival in this one as well. Shipwreck Island. And the last one I'm going to tell you about is called The Compound. In this one, our main character, Eli, lives in an underground bunker with his family. There was some bad stuff going on in the world, and his dad moved them into the bunker years ago. And they've lived underground now for 6 years, trying to stay alive and avoid what's going on outside. Except they want out, and their dad won't let them out. So that is The Compound. And there's actually a sequel to this one. So the important thing that I want you to get out of these monthly book talk videos is that there are tons of books to be read. And if you are the kind of kid who doesn't like reading, I want you to know that I used to be the kid that didn't like reading. As a matter of fact, I hated it until the 8th grade. And the way I compare reading is like shoes. If you made me walk around all day in high-heeled shoes, I wouldn't like shoes because I'm a tennis shoe girl. But if you gave me tennis shoes, I'd be like, oh, this isn't so bad. So if you're the kind of kid who doesn't like to read, it's probably because you're not reading the right thing for you. And what's right for your friend, or what's right for Miss Berger, or what's right for Miss Cobrel isn't what's right for everybody else. We're all unique readers with unique tastes, and you need to keep sampling until you find what it is you love. Thank you for hanging out with me at Book Talk this month. And remember, always be a reader.